Hello and welcome back. We're going to start talking about the actual 12-bar blues now, and we're going to play along with it using all of the things that we've been discussing in the last few segments. All right? So the first thing we have to do is discuss what is a 12-bar blues. Okay? Well, 12-bar blues is the most traditional style of blues that there is. It's a sequence of chords. When we say 12-bar blues, we're talking about 12 measures. Okay? And those 12 measures are going to consist of the 1-4-5 that we've been talking about up to this point. So what we're going to do is we're going to break down those 12 measures into three different sequences or segments, okay? The first segment, the second segment, and then the third segment. The first segment is going to consist of our one chord, whatever key we're going to be in. And remember, the reason we say 1-4-5 is because it doesn't delegate to certain key. We can be in any key we want to. We could use A, D, and E, or G, C, and D, or we could use power chords or bar chords or whatever it is, and we're going to be using all of those things. So the first four measures, or the first segment, is going to be all one chord. Now, there are deviations of these things, and we're going to talk about those as well. But to begin with, we're just going to play a one chord for 4 straight measures. Then what we're going to do is we're going to move on to the second segment, and that's going to be a 4 chord for 2 measures and a 1 chord for 2 measures. And this is written in your booklet, so it's important that you look at that while I'm discussing this. And then the last 4 measures is what we refer to as the turnaround. And this is kind of what tells everybody that we're starting all over. Because we play this same 12 measure sequence over and over and over, sometimes it's kind of easy to get lost in it. So this is where the 5 chord is introduced. Okay? The 5 chord is the first chord of this last segment, and then 4, and then 1, and then we're going to do a turnaround back to the 5. Okay, now that last chord, sometimes that chord will change as well. Sometimes we'll just play a 1 chord there instead of a 5 chord. And you're going to see that in the examples that we're going to listen to in just a minute here. And then we're going to play along with these using various different chords, and we're going to embellish and all sorts of things. So I want you to think about the 12 measure sequence we have here, the 12-bar blues, as being 3 different segments. The first segment being a 1 chord for 4 measures. The second segment being 4-4-1-1, and the third segment, the turnaround, being 5-4-1-5 or 5-4-1-1. Both are very, very popular. Okay? Now, why 3 segments? Well, this is kind of when you go back into history and they talk about, we discuss call and response, or what would happen is, in music we refer to it as an AAB form, where the first segment, a line would be stated. Somebody would sing something or somebody would say something. And in the second 4 measures, that would be repeated. And then the last segment, the turnaround, is when the response would come up, where the answer would come up. So for instance, if you listen to Red House by Jimi Hendrix, you know, he says, there's a red house over yonder, and that's where my baby stays. And then in the second 4 measures, he says the same thing. There's a red house over yonder, that's where my baby stays. And then in the last 4 measures, the turnaround, the response section, he says, I ain't been home to see my baby in 99 1/2 days. So that's a real traditional setup of how the 12-bar blues works.